The little things in life can make a big difference. It's why Mobility Works has been helping people connect with who and what matters most since 1997. Our clients have unique needs, so we treat each of them as individuals. First of all, we listen. Then, we work together to find the best solution. Last, we custom fit clients with precisely the right wheelchair accessible solution. Rest assured that our relationship doesn't end there. We stay connected so you remain completely satisfied. With locations across the country featuring the largest selection of accessible vehicles and adaptive solutions, including minivans and full-size vans, SUVs and trucks, wheelchair and scooter lifts, turning and transfer seats, hand controls, wheelchair securement, and docking systems. Call us today to learn more about our selection of accessible vehicles and adaptive solutions.
Hello and welcome to everyone to our Wednesday morning session of our AT week. Today, Meghan Reitz will be presenting on voice banking. So she's a speech language pathologist who has worked at Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU CHoR for the past 7 years. She has been a member of the Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU's Assistive Technology program. The AT program at VCU is unique as it offers services for individuals with communication and access needs across the lifespan. She completes evaluations and family trainings for children and adults who require augmentative and alternative communication to communicate. So if you guys have any questions during the presentation, you can post them on the comments of this video on Facebook Live, or in the Zoom webinar, you can use the Q&A feature.
All right, can you see me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. As Ray said, my name is Megan, and I am going to be talking to you today about voice and message banking. So I'm going to go ahead here and share my PowerPoint with you. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So first, I'm just going to kind of offer some definitions for what voice banking and message banking are, because they're definitely different. And then we'll kind of get into more detail about both of them. So voice banking is when you can create a synthesized or a computerized voice based on samples of your speech. So there are several different software programs that do this, and what most of them have you do is record yourself saying specific sentences, and then it'll take all of the samples of your speech and make your own synthesized voice that sounds similar to you. This voice then can be loaded into a communication device or a speech generating device. I'm gonna call that an SGD often throughout this presentation, or can be used in, some of them can be used in a text-to-speech app, either on an iOS or Windows-based platform. So with this voice that you create, then any message can be spoken using the voice once it's created, including messages that you type on the spot on your communication device, or any pre-programmed phrases that you have saved on your communication device. Then there's message banking. Message banking is when you digitally record messages that are meaningful to you that you want to use for communication later on. So sometimes these could be phrases like "I love you" or people's names, places that you really like to go. It's very personalized for what you would want to be able to say to somebody later on. That's kind of very unique to you. So it would be your exact phrase that then would be transported into a communication device. So it's going to preserve your cadence, your intonation, all of the unique features of your voice and your message are going to go along because it's actually a file of your voice recorded. And I mentioned in here legacy work. Some individuals choose to do legacy, which refers to creating like a longer video or audio message that you share about you, about your life, with family and friends. And so you can do that this way too, through message banking. Double dipping is, and I got this from the Team Gleason website, it refers to double dipping as using a message, banked message, to create a synthesized voice. So if you have, you know, lots and lots of messages that are specific to you that you've created, some of the communication or voice banking software will allow you to create a voice from those messages instead of having to use the scripted messages that you can also use to create a voice. So the two that I know of that you can do this are through Acapella or the Voice Keeper, and we'll talk about those programs a little bit more later on. But Team Gleason does recommend that you probably need like 800 or so good quality messages from your message banking for this process in order to get a good voice. So I just wanted to go over some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks of both of them, and then we'll kind of look at message banking and voice banking side to side to really give you a comparison, and so that you can see what the differences are. The benefits for voice banking is that you can communicate in a voice that's similar to your own. Even though it's computerized, it's going to sound similar to you. And that way you can communicate any message that you want, any novel thing that you want to say, you'd be able to speak with that voice on your communication device. So you don't have to record every single message that you would ever want to say to somebody. You can text or write something on the spot and it'll say it in that voice that you created. And you know, with everything with technology, it's improving every day. And so some of the software now, you can create a voice with as few as like 200 or 300 recorded sentences. The more sentences that you do, the more accurate of a voice it's going to end up being. But it is possible to do a voice with less sentences these days. And then it is possible to do even if there is a slight change in your voice. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. And then another nice feature of voice banking is that even if you've lost your speech and your voice at this time, a family or a friend can always record their voice so that when you're using your communication device, you have a voice that's meaningful or familiar to you to use when you're communicating with your device. So that's a really unique feature. Some of the drawbacks is that it is going to be a synthesized or characterized voice. So it's not going to pick up on all of your intonation or the changes and emotion that you have typically with your normal speaking voice. So for instance, like the sentence, "I love you," and the sentence, "I don't like that," is going to sound similar in that there's not going to be that emotion behind it. It can be time consuming. Again, it depends on the software that you're doing and how accurate of the voice you want it to be, but it can take several hours to do this whole process. And then depending on what service or software you're using, there can be fees associated with it. Message banking, there are several benefits to message banking as well. Message banking is going to capture your unique voice because, again, they're just digitally recorded samples of your messages. So you can record as many or as few as you want. So if you only want to record 5 messages that are unique to you, you're able to do that. If you wanted to record thousands of things that you say typically, you can do that as well. It's free, which is a nice feature. You can use that double dipping that I talked about earlier, depending on if you're using a software that allows that. So you can do lots and lots of message banking and then turn all of those messages into a synthesized voice. You can record messages on the spot because what the equipment that we recommend is a handheld recorder. So you can take it with you wherever you are. And if you think of a message that you want to record at that moment, you can do that. And then it can also be used for legacy work, like I talked about earlier. Some of the drawbacks with message banking are that it can be time consuming. It just depends on how many messages you want to message bank for those personal touches. So again, it could be only a few, but if you want a lot, it can be kind of time consuming. There are several steps to take to get the messages onto a speech generating device. So sometimes people need assistance with this, but it is possible to do. And then the last is that the user or the person that's message banking has to determine what messages they want to record. So sometimes individuals might not know where to start. They might not know what messages they want to record. And so this can sometimes be overwhelming for the user, just even to think about what messages would they want to bank. So I have this little chart here, just kind of comparing the two side to side. So for message banking, how it's done is you're gonna, either have a list of messages that you want to record or record them on the spot, and each message is gonna be its own separate file. And you can use this website called mymessagebanking.com to store all of your messages. For voice banking, you're gonna read sentences for the specific program. This on here, it talks about Model Talker, but there are a few other voice banking programs as well. And the speech is analyzed, and then your voice is created. So the result for message banking is that you're gonna have lots of individualized phrases, but you only then have access to the phrases that you've already recorded. Anything else that you would want to say on the communication device, say you type in a sentence with the keyboard, it's going to speak in the synthesized voice that comes on the device. Whereas with voice banking, your voice is going to be created and loaded onto your device, and then that voice is going to speak anything that you say on the device. So with message banking, each file is going to be loaded into the device, and then once you click on a button, it'll say the message that you have. Or again, voice banking, it's going to read whatever sentence or pre-programmed phrase you have in there in your synthesized voice. So they definitely sound different. Message banking, it's going to sound exactly like the recording of what you recorded. Whereas voice banking, it's going to have that kind of computerized voice that'll sound like you. It's just not going to pick up on all your voice quality, uniqueness, or emotion that you have. And then the last thing is the difference in timing that it can take. So typically message banking could take shorter amount of time. It just depends on how many messages you want to record. So if you're going to do thousands, it might take you longer than 1 to 3 hours. Whereas voice banking, to get a very clear and accurate voice, can take up to 6 to 8 hours. Again, it just depends on the software that you're using. So I do have a couple of examples for a side-by-side comparison of what a voice-banked voice is going to sound like versus a message-banked message. So let me share this again. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so here we go. This is a video from a speech pathologist at Boston Children's Hospital, who also has an ALS program, named John Costello. He's very big in the field, and he created this just to kind of help people see the difference between the message banked voice and the voice banked voice.
You are the love of my life, and I am so glad you have been beside me. You are the love of my life, and I am so glad that you've been beside me. I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. Did the wizard get back to you about a brain? Did the wizard get back to you about a brain?
All right, so that video is a nice comparison. He's typing in whatever message he wants it to speak, and it initially speaks it in his voice banked voice, which you can hear sounds a lot like his voice. But then the second one is what a message bank message would say. So it really picks up the cadence and the intonation and the uniqueness of his expressions and how he talks. So that's, that's one of the big differences. The Voice Keeper is one of the voice banking software that's out there that can create a voice for you with as little as, I think it's 30 sentences that you speak. Again, it's not going to be as great of a voice compared to how you sound as if you did, thousands of sentences. But I did try this the other day just to give you an example. So I ended up recording 100 sentences, and then this is the voice that they came up with for me. So I will record something, and then let me actually get out of here. I have it pulled up somewhere else. Hold on one second. Okay, so I'm going to type in a message for you, and you can hear what my voice sounds like that they created from 100 sentences that I recorded.
Hey, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, how are you doing this morning?
I am very excited to talk with all of you today.
I am very excited to talk with all of you today. All right, so that was just a quick example. But so again, it is possible to create a voice with as little as 100 sentences, but it's not going to sound as clear or as much like you as if you record, maybe hundreds or even thousands of sentences. All right, let me get back into my slideshow mode. So those are the comparison, side to side of what they would sound like. And again, this would be a voice or messages that you could have on your communication device, or, with a voice banked voice, maybe using on a text-to-speech app. So a lot of times we get questions about, where to start. It seems like a really big process, and people often have a lot of questions about determining, what to do, what's the best choice. And really, it's definitely a personal preference about whether you want to do voice banking or you want to do message banking or even doing the both of them. It's totally personal preference about what you think is important for you. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate equipment in order to get started. And loaner equipment may be available through your local chapter of the ALS Association or even Team Gleason. So it's definitely worth reaching out to find out if they do have that equipment for you. When thinking about voice banking, you have to think about which company you want to end up going with. Again, it's a personal preference. It may depend on cost or funding. Some of the software does have funding options through Team Gleason. If you already have a speech generating device or a text-to-speech app that you're using, you want to make sure that it's going to be compatible with the voice software that you decide to choose. And then I mentioned Team Gleason has funding options for 2 of the voice banking choices, which are Model Talker and Acapella's My Own Voice program. For message banking, I think the big thing with message banking is people often just don't really know where to start, what sort of messages to create. And so often we'll give suggestions just to start writing down things maybe that you say frequently, or even asking family and friends about things that you say that are unique to you, that you would want to be able to capture and have those exact phrases be spoken if you were to end up needing a communication device down the road. So the equipment that's needed for voice banking is you're going to need a computer that has access to the internet. And then most of the companies do recommend that you have an external microphone, just because the quality is going to be better with a microphone external to the computer than just the computer microphone itself. For message banking, a lot of people recommend the Zoom H1 recorder. I think this is something that you could probably just purchase off of Amazon. I know that we have one at the clinic and that we had gotten from Amazon, and they use .wav files. And so that's what you'll need initially to record all your messages. You also need a memory card, SD card in the recorder so that it can save your messages. And then once you're ready to load them, you'll need a computer and the internet to be able to store your messages. So these are the voice banking options that are out there right now. And I have this link from Project Revoice, which is an ALS Association initiative to help with determining, software and choices that are out there for people. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this so you can see. It's nice because it has a, chart right here at the bottom. Let me reshare my screen so you can see. It has a chart that has each voice banking software company at the top. So Model Talker, Sarah Proc, Sarah Voice, Me, Vocal ID, Acapella My Own Voice, DNN, and then the Voice Keeper. And it tells you the process. So how time consuming is it? How many sentences are you going to have to record in order to get your voice? So you'll see that some of them have a minimum. So a minimum of 100 or 400. Some of them require over 1,000 for a specific amount of time. So Acapella was one of the ones where you can do that double dipping process. So they want at least 30 minutes of quality message banked messages, or then 30 to 90 minutes of scripted recording. So it tells you the time commitment needed, if you're able to do it from home, which all of them you are, the cost. So all of them do have a cost. Like I said, some of them are funded through Team Gleason, Model Talker, and Acapella. And then they're all able to be imported into a communication device or an SGD. And then the different languages and the different equipment that's needed to use the programs. So, and again, this is on the projectrevoice.org page where it has all this information for you so that you can kind of compare the differences when you're deciding, which one is going to be right for you. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So like I said, all of those voice banking programs will allow you to put your voice into an SGD. Not all of the voices can go into every SGD, but they can go into at least like one or two. So that, that's another consideration to think about, especially if you already had an SGD or you knew a specific SGD that you've tried that you really liked. And examples of the companies that make communication devices are Tobii Dynavox, PRC, Saltillo, and SmartBox has Grid 3 communication software. And then I mentioned that some of the voice banking voices that you create can be loaded into a text-to-speech app. So if you have a text-to-speech app on your tablet, either an iOS or an Android app, there's an app called Predictable, which is available on iOS and Android. And you can use a voice that you've voice banked from Model Talker or Acapella's My Own Voice. And then also Proloquo for text is an iOS app that you can use your voice from Acapella's My Own Voice. So those are two options that I know of right now where you can use your voice banked voice. And then message banking, there is a website that I have up here, mymessagebanking.com. It was a joint project that was created between Boston Children's Hospital's Department of Otolaryngology and Tobii Dynavox. It's a free website to use, but it helps you walk through the steps of what you're going to do. Once you have all of your messages, or at least some of your messages recorded on your handheld recorder, it's going to tell you how to load them into the website. And what you would do is just create a user, and then all of your messages can be stored on the website until you're ready to load them into a communication device. Like I said, it's free, and the website helps guide you through the process and also helps you organize your messages by tagging categories. Is it a medical need? Is it a social thing that you would say? Is it a family member's name? All of that you can specify. So then once it gets put into your communication device, it's all already kind of organized for you, and you don't then have to organize everything at that point. And message banking can be used with a variety of the speech generating devices that I had talked about in the previous slide. So lastly, just some considerations. If your voice is still totally normal and you have a lot of energy and are ready to start this process, that's a great time to start. If you're finding out about this now and you've already had some changes in your voice, it's still possible to do either voice or message banking. If you have some slight slurring of your speech, voice banking is still possible. It might not sound, as accurate as if your voice was completely normal, but you just want to make sure that you have the energy for the process. Because like I said earlier, it can take several hours. And this isn't something that we're going to assume you're going to sit down and for 6 hours straight record all of your sentences. They definitely recommend doing it in waves and taking breaks and doing it on different days so that you don't, fatigue yourself and fatigue your voice. For message banking, because it requires less energy and you can just kind of do it on the spot and on the go, speech precision is not as important as with voice banking. You just want to make sure that your words and your phrases are recognizable. If you are really unhappy with how your voice is sounding, that's something to consider. Would you want a message to speak the way that you're speaking now on a device? Again, it's totally personal preference. So just some extra considerations to think about when you're thinking about if voice and message banking is something that you want to do and are interested in pursuing. And then I put on here just some resources that I used for this presentation and that I often refer people to. So the ALS Association itself has lots of good information, as well as the specific DC, Maryland, Virginia chapter. Team Gleason has information, especially if you're interested in the funding aspect for voice banking. Boston Children's Hospital program I put on here. They have lots of information. And then 2 speech therapist links on here that work a lot with individuals with ALS. So some of their resources I included as well. And then these are the websites used for voice banking, the 5 that I had talked about. And if you just Google the name of them, it's pretty easy to find their web pages, but these are the specific links that you could always use to find the software that you're looking for. All right, and I think that is all I have for now.
Thanks, Megan, for that presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the comments on Facebook or on Zoom. You can use the Q&A feature on the bottom of the screen. I will tell you that John Costello did post while you were talking, and he posted some extra resources as well as kind of an updated, well, he's going to be updating that video that you used comparing the voice banked voice and the message bank voice.
Okay, great.
Yep. So we'll see if there's any questions. None have popped up yet, but we'll give everyone a couple of minutes. Scott Pierce says thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, just checking now. All right, and you have a lot of links in that PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do, if anybody would like access to the PowerPoint, you can email us or post here on the comments, and then I can send that over to you if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, because it's a little bit easier to navigate to some of those links with that.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions, but what we can do is we can, forward those questions on to you if you're willing, or we can answer them and we'll kind of figure something out.
Yeah,
but thank
I would
you
be
so
happy.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your time. And we'll be back 1 o'clock today to have a representative from Model Talk who will kind of talk more about what the actual process looks like to do voice banking. So.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right. See you guys later this afternoon.
All right, bye-bye.